Welcome to YSM Conversations, a gathering place for women who sense something deeper is calling. Together, we believe that the most profound adventures begin within, and that when women gather in deep conversation, something ancient and necessary awakens.
Open the door to a new conversation through generative listening, weaving together generations of wisdom and listening beyond the ears to restore the intelligence your body has always carried and integrate soulfulness into the adventure of your life. This is restoring and connecting to the deeper current running beneath it all.
We are YSM Conversations. Welcome home. Welcome back to YSM Conversations. This next set of episodes is near and dear to both of our hearts because we're going to be talking about the origin story of YSM, what brought us into it, how we moved through it, and what we are generating from it as we continue to move through together. We wanted to share our origin story with you because we started to realize as we got going with YSM Conversations and getting onto Spotify and Apple Podcasts that we've got a lot of momentum now. And we really approached this experiment with a lot of intention, as well as a lot of openness in terms of being curious about what wants to be generated rather than prescriptive. This is our origin story, how YSM came to be, because it really is its own field unto itself. I don't even know which one of us came to the other and was like, there's something here that wants to be explored. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know what it's going to look like, but can we just be in conversation with each other and see what rises from here? That was about 2 years ago. And we spent the first at least 11 months or so meeting every single week, just talking with each other, seeing what wanted to be generated. And funnily enough, when we first started with each other, we did think that maybe a podcast would be what we did and record our conversations and share them because we had had a conversation about a year prior to that on CreateAWorld, a platform that Victoria has been serving and supporting for a number of years as well. And there was something really deeply special about that conversation. And both of us were just enamored and knew that there was something more that wanted to be birthed through us. So we started up this experiment. And over those 11 months that we were just seeing what wanted to arise, we came upon so many stumbling blocks and we communicated with each other and said, basically, these are all the things that I know have been challenges for me in the past, working in collaboration with people. Can you hold this? Can we hold this in this space and be okay with that with each other? We can get into specifics of what those were as we dive in, but I wanted to just set that scene of us coming into this super intentionally, not knowing what it is, and just listening deeply to what wanted to rise between us as we moved into what has become YSM Conversations. And I see this little beautiful mischievous smile on your face, Victoria. And I wanted to invite you in and just share whatever reflections that you have of our last 2.5, 3 years.
Thank you. It's good to be back and to be in this in-between moment of generating conversations prior to now saying, oh, let's share a story about us coming together. It feels like such a pivotal moment in which we now know YSM has its own energy that it operates from. And I think that's why the origin story wants to be voiced. How did I get here as YSM Conversations? And how we both uniquely operate in conversation with each other in order to be a part of creating something that is new and moves beyond what normal conversation with somebody is. And one of the things that I think is lovely about our origin story is that each of us had whatever that nudging was that called to one another. I remember I requested you to come into a conversation on CreateAWorld that it definitely was multi-topical in that conversation. It could be about grief and transition. It could be about yoga and movement, because we do have some ground in how we are who we are as human beings. And yet we have this diverse background of experience from that multi-generational, multi-dimensional aspects, and also multicultural. And I just kept being curious about what is it that attracts me to want to be in conversation with you, that it's not just one thing. So that was part of my curiosity in an origin story. What would it be like to really sit with somebody and delve in more deeply? And I had no idea that it would become self-generating. Does that feel like the right word?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the generative listening that we've landed in and that has been revealed to us has been the vehicle as well as the medium that we're bringing into the world. So self-generating, absolutely. Self-generating and self-revealing.
I like that. Because one of the interesting things about coming together with that 11 months or whatever of conversation is we did it behind the scenes. We just volunteered our time in our lives to be in conversation before we ever even thought about bringing it into the world of the public. There was an intentionality in being in conversation, and we didn't decide where that would take us. I think one of the intentions that you and I have carried from the get-go is that it had to be organically created.
I had this flashback when you were sharing about the self-revealing and the organic nature of what we're doing and coming to this without pushing and without making it into whatever form we think is the right form, because I always like to say what the universe has in store for us is so much more magical than what we can ever dream up. So the flashback that I had as you were talking was when you and I met, literally the only time that we've met in person, in Sedona at a business retreat. Every single woman in the room had a spotlight to do whatever request was on your mind and in your heart. And I remember your request was, I would love for anybody to just reflect what they experience from being in relationship with me. I remember you saying, this is not a requirement. I don't need or want everybody to say something. If anybody feels called to it, even one person, that would be amazing. And every single woman in the room reflected back to you something. And there was so much magic in, number one, the request to be witnessed and reflected back to. And number two, for me, when it came my turn to really to sit with, what is it that I experience from this being in relationship to this being? And I think that is something that really drew me into conversation with you and into relationship with you, because I feel so much kinship as well as so much deep connection that goes beyond these lifetimes, beyond meeting each other one time in person, which I still can't believe. The world of the internet is crazy. And to share that with the world, because when we first started this out, when we were like, I don't know what needs to happen, but something needs to happen, I remember you explicitly saying, it feels like we're out to eat lunch and we're having a conversation and someone can just eavesdrop in on what we're talking about. Because whenever you and I get in the same room, whether it's a Zoom room or whether it's a living room, something magical does arise. And that's not something that's usually accessed in normal conversation. So I wanted to reawaken those pieces.
My whole body is just in sheer happiness right now, just in the reflection of those experiences. I remember standing up in front and giving that request and knowing maybe it would be met and maybe it would not, and that's okay. I feel like that's part of the origin of how we've come together to invite people into our little cubby, as if we're having lunch and we're saying, one, we're having a conversation with each other here in whatever is drawing our attention. And we'd love for you to eavesdrop on us and maybe even say, I'd love to join you sometime. Sit with what just moved through. We'll meet you in the next one. Thank you for diving deep with us into generative listening. If this episode stirred something in you, subscribe to keep restoring with us. And if someone came to mind while you were in your own generative listening, share this episode with them. Because when women gather, something ancient and necessary awakens.
We are YSM Conversations, connecting back to the deeper currents on behalf of seeding our next collective wholeness.